I'm looking to work with folks who understand that sustainable business success comes from commitment, right? You're never going to see in one of my newsletters, 3 quick tips to solve all of your management problems, right? I'm not trying to sell that thing.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. All right, before we jump in, I want to invite you to join me for something really special that I do every year. And this is an opportunity to review the year behind you. So to review 2021 in this case, and then to plan the year ahead, to plan a spectacular 2022 in your business. So this is actually what I do every year in my own planning process. And I also really love to lead you through it. So this is going to be happening on December 17th at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're listening to this before then, sign up, join me. The spot to sign up is rebeltherapist.me/plan. When you sign up, you will get the link to join me on Friday, December 17th. During that session, you're also going to briefly hear about Create Your Program, which is my program to help you create your program beyond private practice. No hard sales pitch, just you're going to hear about it for a few minutes to see if it might be the right thing for you. But the vast majority of our time is actually spent planning out your 2022 and reviewing your 2021 in a meaningful way. I'm actually more interested in helping you look at what you're not going to do in 2022 and carving out the space for what's most important to you in 2022. And this process is a little different than some planning processes you might have been through before, in that we are really making room for opportunities, for pivots. It needs to be a flexible plan. It's not going to be a step-by-step overwhelming plan that you'll take all the way through 2022. It's going to be an opportunity to look at your vision and plan out the next steps to move you closer to that vision. So I'd love to have you there. You'll have some time to work, but if you can, I would also highly recommend that you block out a bunch of hours either that day or within the next few days to dive further into your plan and to spend more time with it. Oh, and so you don't have to ask, yes, I'm going to give you a recording of the planning session as long as you sign up before December 17th. All right, let's get into today's conversation. I want you to listen to how my guest is zigging when other people are zagging. This is a business owner who is growing a unique and profitable business, and she's doing it her way, really thoughtfully. She speaks to a really particular audience, and she's got no desire to appeal to everyone. She's building her thought leadership, and she's not doing it on social media. So that's just one example of how she's doing things differently. I want you to listen to how she does her marketing and then think about how you could borrow some of her ideas and make them your own. Meet Podge Thomas. Podge Thomas is a business coach and management specialist. She works with women business owners to help hire and grow strong teams in order to find financial, systemic, and structural sustainability. And I have leaned heavily on Podge's advice in growing my own team. Welcome, Podge. Okay, in addition to the bio that I read, I just want people to right away understand how great you are. You're the friend who will tell you when you have shit on your face. So like when we were setting this up, there's like a questionnaire that I send to guests. And I get back an email from you saying like, hey, I don't know if you're aware, but you have the word pubic in your questionnaire. I think it might be public that you're trying to say. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely not what I meant.
I think what I loved about it the most was that it was question one.
Yeah. Question one.
I felt like for me it sort of set a tone that I needed. I didn't even know I needed it, but that was the tone that it set.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, so you and I met in Terry McMullen's What Works Network. And so I've gotten to get to know you there. And then you've also helped me with my hiring process, which I'm still in the middle of. And perhaps that pubic word on my questionnaire tells you a little bit about what I'm looking for in a team member. It's like attention to detail. Okay, so let's dive all the way in.
Okay.
So, will you tell us briefly about your services? Because I want to leave plenty of time to dive into your marketing and cool stuff like that. So, who do you work with and what do your services look like?
Yeah. So I work with women-owned businesses, and the core of my service is coaching. So I meet one-on-one with my clients to provide that real-time coaching. I'm also available between sessions for, any question answering, troubleshooting, etc. And then I also have a tool that's actually being beta tested as we speak that is based in Notion. And it's essentially a whole system through which you can manage and steward your employees all the way through your business, from hiring to onboarding to training to letting go. So you can kind of like grab what you want. It's almost like a grab bag. You don't have to take the whole system and input it and populate it. What you can do is you can go, I'm ready to train my staff. Let me start with the engagement and training module and build that out. Or, you know what, I have to let somebody go. Let me build that system out so that it can support me. So those are the two major components. So I do the one-on-one coaching, and then everybody who works with me has access to the tool for not only the duration of while we're working together, but an additional 12 months. So you really get 18 months access to all of this material. I'm calling it a course, even though it's really more like a tool. And then for that, I do monthly office hours with all of my clients. Anybody can show up and sort of ask me questions, technical questions about the tool itself. So that's the basic rundown of my services.
Oh my God, that's so great. I didn't know about that tool. So, okay, what's Notion? Because you said it's in Notion.
Wow. Now this I
I can
definitely
help
should
you
have
with this one
prepared
because
for.
I use Notion too.
You use
It's
Notion
everything.
too.
Yeah.
It is everything. I mean, I think of it as being a project management tool in the very, very broadest sense. Whether your project management is, maybe like your food, you could store all of your menu and your recipes and all that kind of stuff. Whether it's your business as a solopreneur like me, or whether you had a business with lots of people, you could use it that way too. So it's a combination, I would say, of, or the ways that you can use it is you can use databases, or you can use it as, I guess, kind of a straight text, even though there's a lot of flexibility with that as well. So the way I use it for the Management Hub, which is the name of my tool, is I have all of the course material is in there. So those are in there as static pages that you can read through. And then I also have a whole set of databases that you can copy and paste. And then I also have within those databases templates for SOPs, for tools, interview questions. I mean, you name it. So Notion is a place where you can house so many different types of information. And then the way I like to use it the most is by relating the databases to each other. So I can call up information from one click, like that can take me into like a deep dive of detail.
So good. So good. I use Notion for, I can tell there are a lot of ways I'm not using it to its fullest, but I use it for, like, I'm peeking at it right now because it's where I have my questions for you. And then it also has everything from like my whole podcast to all of the curriculum in my programs. And then it does have my recipes and that I want to keep,
Yeah.
and the TV shows I don't want to forget to watch. Like, it's just got everything.
What's the next show? Well, what's the current show that you're watching, and what's next up?
Well, I'm watching Sex Education right now, but let me see. In my Notion, Love and Hip Hop, although I did start watching that. Yeah.
You are the queer West Coast version of Otis's mom. I feel like you could be
Oh,
the Gillian Anderson of Sex Education.
yes, please.
Yeah, right? Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Okay, but to go back, here's what I want to point out though, because I thought that this was really clever. You reached out to me, and I think probably lots of other people in your network, in preparation for hiring. You sent an email out saying, hey, I'm going to be hiring. If you know anybody, here's the link. And I clicked on the link, and you used Notion to get that process started, which I love that you did that. And I feel like at some point you and I would love to have a conversation with you to see how you sort of extrapolated that out, because I thought that was really cool.
Awesome. Yes. Yes. So many capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay. So in that tool, like, how do you think how does it now break down, and how do you imagine it will break down in terms of like how many people, like the percentage of folks you have working with you using that tool, and how many are doing your more individual coaching package?
So right now, those are connected. If you hire me as a coach, you get access to the system. You can't access it. You can't access the management hub unless you work with me. And so there are a number of different reasons of varying interest levels why I did it that way. I did think that I was going to monetize it on its own at some point, and I decided not to. I definitely got some input and feedback. I decided not to. I decided to open it up just to the folks I'm working with, and it did work out really well because we had our monthly office hours for it yesterday, and I'm working with somebody who's helping me with technical assistance. She's a Notion expert, so she shows up, and people have questions that I cannot answer because I don't know how, I don't understand Notion well, and I feel like I understand Notion pretty well, but I don't understand it well enough. So she was there, and I'll be working with her later today to sort of do some tweaking. And I think that the biggest barrier to this is going to be the tech stuff. I mean, I can tell you one of my clients who's using it she started to try to use Notion, found the learning curve a little too stiff, which is completely understandable. And now she's trying to use ClickUp. And I don't know ClickUp as well, but my understanding is that there's a learning curve there too. I think eventually I'll try to have the system in both places, so that because I feel like if you use some sort of project management tool, especially if you're running an online business, you're probably either using Notion or you're using ClickUp. Like I think at least 60% of people are using one of those tools, so I think that will be helpful. But I do think it's always going to be the barrier, which is why I wanted to start the office hours. But this, even just to sort of connect this to my larger philosophy around how I work. So I'm working with business owners who are managing people, whether they're managing them directly or whether they have somebody between them and somebody who's managing their team. I'm looking to work with folks who understand that sustainable business success comes from commitment, right? You're never going to see in one of my newsletters, 3 quick tips to solve all of your management problems, right? I'm not trying to sell that thing. That's not the game that I'm peddling, right? The game I'm peddling is much less sexy. There's no sound biteness to it, right? What I'm saying is I can fix your problems. It's probably going to take about 18 months, right? So I think it's less appealing, but I'm looking for the people who understand that in order to find true sustainability, it takes commitment and it takes time. So if I'm coming into your organization and helping you, whether that's with hiring, whether that's with, onboarding, whatever it might be, that whatever piece I come in and help you tweak is probably going to take about 6 months. And that I used to work with people for 3 months and it was too short.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yes. And so now I work with folks for 6 months. Maybe we enter in to the, onboarding and orientation module. That's what we really finesse in 6 months. And then you continue to have access to the course. You continue to have access to my office hours for a whole nother year, because at that point you kind of get it, right? If you complete sort of one module or one area with me, you're going to kind of understand where it is I'm coming from and how to use the tool and how to start thinking about growing, creating, expanding, whatever, your team in a way that gives you sustainability, and then you sort of get this like tail end of support, so you can kind of figure those pieces out for yourself. But I'm playing a long game here, not just for my own business, but I'm looking at my client and I'm saying, play the long game with me. Like, I'm here to support you for a longer period of time, because what we're doing is we might be changing culture, we might be changing practices, we might be changing procedures. You might be growing a team from scratch, right? I might work with you for 18 months and you might hire 4 or 5 people. That's massive change. That takes a lot of wherewithal. It takes a lot of commitment. There's lots of pieces that you have to juggle. So that's kind of where I come in. When I have a discovery call, what I'm looking for is, where do you think the biggest problem is? This is, I didn't invent this at all, but usually the problem you think you have isn't really the problem, right? There's usually something else going on. So my discovery call process is about saying, okay, where are you? And sort of absorbing that information and then saying, okay, this is where I think that we could get started and dig in. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of rebuild the foundation a little bit. Like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to kind of sort of dig underneath and kind of resettle the foundation, so that as you then build up, it's a bit stronger with your people. Because you know what? Here's what happens. You've done this. You start your business. So you've already got kind of the skills and the experience, the basic knowledge that you need to start a business, right? So you start finding clients. That's marketing and sales. People start paying you. So then you figure out the finances. Along the way, you're figuring out all of the operational pieces. And that's the basic foundation of most small or micro businesses. And then eventually, it might be 3 years in, might be 5 years in, you have to start working with other people. So management comes last. It always comes last. And because most of us, even if we've come from traditional work environments, the chances are what we were taught or what we learned about management isn't good enough to create the kind of work culture that we need.
Hell yeah. And I want to back up a little bit. I want to hear about, so I've kind of been through a similar process, I think, but I want to hear about how you've landed here, where the business model you've got now is working with a smaller number of people in a much more high touch way. And that's what I've been landing on as well. Like, I've flirted with larger offers, more passive offers, and we've never really gotten there, me and those kinds of offers, because I've also seen, like, with the work I do with people, it's not really just about the information. It's about the mindset, the implementation. And I don't want to sell something and hand people something that they're not really going to make the best use of. Like, I want to give them the support and the experience and the actual hand holding to do the parts that they need my help with and each other's help with. And so there's a little bit of resistance in not going for those really passive, massive kinds of offers.
High volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing a massive audience and selling your whatever your thing is, your doily en masse. Yeah.
And I know for me, it's partly, it doesn't line up with my superpowers. Like, doing that huge offer doesn't line up with my superpowers, but it also this is part bias and part observation. Like it also doesn't, I don't think it usually works very well. So I'm wondering for you, what led you to, has it always been clear to you that you wanted to work in this high touch kind of way?
It was a combination of sort of following the things that I got the most out of personally and professionally, and getting feedback and input from people who I respect. And I did briefly consider sort of like a mastermind group program approach. I'm not ruling that out. If there was a demand for it, or I felt like there was a gap in the market for it, I would consider doing it. However, I think that for the moment, while I'm still forming my own, I'm going to use the word thought leadership, and I would like to use it a little tongue in cheek, because I think sometimes it sounds pretentious. But what I mean is sort of like my body of knowledge and my body of work around management and leadership. While that's growing and stabilizing, I think that doing one-on-one is what is best for me, because it's almost like every time I take on a new client, it's another opportunity for me to learn more, grow, tweak, iterate, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't feel like I've landed yet on a place where I could go, great, I can package this up into a little box, tie a bow on it, and I can give it to you, and with some level of support, whether that's group or whether that's, office hours, like whatever that looks like, you can get this thing. I don't feel like my services are there yet. I still feel like I very much need to be working hands-on with a business owner.
Mm-hmm. In a moment, we're going to get back into it with Podge. First, I want to invite you to register for Create Your Program. This is an 8-week process to expand your business beyond private practice. So you're going to go from having an idea, or knowing you, probably a bunch of ideas, to actually launching a pilot program. This is a small group experience where you work directly with me and you get a lot of brave work done, along with a supportive group of driven and open-hearted and progressive entrepreneurs like you. This is designed to have you launching a paid program at the end of our time together or soon after. Folks are usually pretty surprised at how much support they get from me and from the structure of this experience. You're going to have videos and worksheets to take you through the process, and you're going to also have many ways to get your questions answered, including a lot of live calls with me and introvert office hours, where you get to submit any question and any number of questions and get my answers a couple of times each week. And that happens asynchronously. So you submit your question any freaking time, and then I will answer your question and the questions of the other folks in your cohort. So that is a fun part of the program. This experience is for you if you're a therapist or a healer and you want to expand your business, and perhaps you're not quite sure where to start or what to do next. Go over to rebeltherapist.me/create to learn all about it and register. There's so much about this program that I can't really fit into this little segment here. You get to talk to a lawyer during it. You get to talk to a systems and tech expert during it. But so just go head over to rebeltherapist.me/create, learn all about it, and you're going to want to sign up. All right, let's get back into it with Podge. And I can't wait to work with you. So go ahead, check that out. And let's get back into this conversation with the amazing Podge. And what's the structure like of the coaching? Like, is it different lengths? Do you decide together how long it's going to be, or is it a set amount?
So I just started toying around with not toying around. A few months ago, I started toying around with extending it from 3 months to 6 months. And so just in the last probably few weeks, maybe a month, my new clients are now signing on to a 6-month coaching program. Although I will say I have a discovery call coming up with somebody who doesn't think that she needs that. So I'm interested to see how that conversation goes. So sometimes people ask me, like, do you offer coaching? Yes, I offer coaching, but I don't do one-off coaching unless I've worked with somebody. And the reason being that you kind of what I mentioned before, which is part of the discovery call discussion, is I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, so what's going on? And you're going to go, oh, I have this one employee who has just gone absolutely rogue. And you're going to spend X amount of dollars, paying me to tell you that this isn't your biggest problem. Actually, you need to back way up and you need to rebuild a system so that you don't end up with this person in the future. So that's kind of why I don't do those drop-ins unless I've already worked with somebody, because what I want to do is I want to come in and I want to help you go from where you are to a different place that is a combination of your experience, your values, and what I'm teaching, which is this more sustainable approach to hiring and growing teams.
Okay. And so you said that's 6 months and you're meeting with people for how long and how often?
So 6 months plus the 12 months continued access to the management hub with the monthly office hours. And then I meet with my clients it sometimes works out to be every other week, but it's basically twice a month because busy business owners are busy. And I want enough time to go between sessions so that you can integrate what we've talked about. I'll usually give you a little bit of homework. I want to make sure you've got time to do that. You can ask me questions in between, but nobody needs to see me weekly. Nobody ever wants to see me weekly. Who has time for that?
How long is each session?
It's an hour. Yeah, I kick off with a 2-hour session so we can really kind of do a deep dive, and we'll sort of, I used to come up with a plan. Okay, we kick off with a longer session, or we have this kickoff session, and then I can come up with this whole plan. Usually by like week 4, the plan has completely derailed. So I really want that kickoff session to do some deep dives, and I'll sketch out what I think the journey is going to be. But sometimes something will come up and we have to go in a slightly different direction. I always want to make sure I've got the flexibility to do that.
Nice. I've been doing this thing where when people join my mastermind, I ask them to come up with their most important goal, their MIG.
Okay.
and then, a rough plan of how we're going to experiment with them starting to get there. But not mapping out a huge plan, a huge detailed plan, because that plan will be the plan 0% of the time. Like it will never end up being the long-term plan.
But is the goal that end up, like, how often does their goal change? Because I feel like if you said to me, what's your goal?
I make them change it.
Okay.
I make them change it. If I like it, I'm like, awesome, we got a MIG. And if I don't like it, then I ask them more questions so we can settle on a better one. And like, just for example, like if someone says their MIG is to come up with a profitable plan, that's not our MIG. Like that's what we're going to do in the first couple of weeks. But like, their MIG should be to hit a particular income, something really specific, like a particular income goal or a particular, like, I want to launch my offer this many times.
Yeah, because you have a certain amount of time that folks spend with you in your mastermind program, right? It's a 5-week program?
Well, no, the mastermind is 8 weeks.
Mastermind is 8 weeks.
No, Annie, actually your mastermind is 8 months long. Okay, back to the convo. The first one is between 5 and 8 weeks.
So you've got a limited amount of time. So you're looking at that goal and you're saying, this goal is either not specific enough or it's not attainable enough in this period of time. And I think that as coaches, one of the biggest challenges that we have is to make sure that we leave people better than we found them. And it does take time, right? That the work that you and I do is similar in that we are helping business owners create plans or make changes that are going to be impactful. That impact might be financial, it might be personal, it might be professional, it might be a pivot. I mean, it could be anything. But wanting to make sure that when we get to the end, everybody feels like I did something that I'm proud of. This feels good. This feels tangible. I feel like I moved the needle. I think that's such an important piece of what we do.
So much. Yeah. Okay. So I think you don't list your prices on your site.
That's correct.
You might. Okay. How come you don't list them?
Yeah, this is such a good question. There are a couple of reasons. One of them is that I'm in a pricing transition. So my prices are changing. And so I don't want to publish something and then forget to update it. And now I'm on a discovery call and, well, gosh, that's a different price, isn't it? So I don't want that to happen. And then the other piece is, that's probably the biggest piece at this point. And then the other piece is because I am high touch, it also means that my services are higher than your average services, right? My coaching program is a 5-figure program. So there's something that numbers can do to us psychologically. And I think sometimes seeing it in print without being able to have a conversation, you don't get the full impact of why it's priced that way. And that's not true for everybody. A lot of people go, oh, great, that's fantastic. So that's really why I don't have them there. And it's just not a one price fits all. So let's say, for example, you hire me and you want to give access to maybe your director of operations to Notion and have that person come to the office hours. That's going to change the price a little bit, right? Because that's going to mean more interaction for me. So it's not a one price fits all. And so those are the two main reasons why I don't publish them.
That makes sense. And how are most people finding you who end up hiring you?
For the most part, it's referral, right? So probably the backbone of my business is networking, is relationship building, which I love. I mean, I don't know that I would have it any other way. I'm really good one-on-one. I'm really good with small groups. So oftentimes I'm referred, or I borrow audiences. Essentially, I go do workshops or speaking gigs for mastermind groups. I did something recently for a group of women who all went through the Tory Burch Foundation Business Incubator. So I went and did a workshop with them on how to build out an organizational chart. And so that's usually how people get to know me. It is through sort of those more personal introductions.
Excellent. So how do you make those collaborations happen, those audience borrowing situations? Is that all done through networking?
Everything is really done through networking. So somebody introduced me recently to an organization called Lower Manhattan Headquarters. They are a co-working space in Manhattan. And so, they're all mostly virtual now. And they run lots of really interesting programming. So I went and did a workshop with their folks, and they booked me in to do another workshop with them, which is really fun. So that's kind of how I meet people, network, get referrals. And it's also how I test out some of my new ideas, right? Some of my new workshops or some of my new ideas around the management hub or, whatever it might be. And that's how I have been growing my business.
Do you usually, for those kinds of opportunities, do you usually charge for them? And also, how do you suss out whether this seems like a worthwhile one, or do you just kind of do it?
So if they have a budget to pay me, I'm happy to get paid. But if I'm borrowing an audience and there might be a conversion there for me, either a networking conversion or a direct client conversion, I'm very, very happy to not charge for it. And, at this point, that's really working for me. I don't know that will always happen that way. I would imagine as I grow my network, as my services become higher demand, I would imagine that may turn into a paid service, but it's not something that I consider at this point as an extra revenue stream.
Okay. And so some people are going to be surprised because networking is your main thing, that you're not on social media, right? You're not on any social media?
I'm on LinkedIn.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
And how much are you using LinkedIn?
Not hardly at all. I mean, I think of LinkedIn as being like the boring dad of social media, right? It's not like it's not like as fun and sexy as like Instagram or TikTok, but it's also a place where I think people feel like they're at work, and so they behave in a way that would be sort of consistent with work. Sometimes it feels like this professional working space, but I don't use it that much. It has become a place where people are trying to figure out how to use the algorithm in order to get their stuff to float to the top. And so it's just not engaging for me. It's people linking articles. It's people very obviously going, hey, look at me, but in more of a highbrow sort of academic professional way than Instagram is like, hey, look at me in a more of a flashy, you know, casual, you know, here's a selfie of me looking cute in my car kind of thing, you know. And I think that all of those things are fine, but they don't speak to me at all. I find them exhausting. And if I'm going to spend time growing an audience, I might as well doing it in a way that I like, in a way that I'm good at and speaks to my strengths, and really aligns with my values, which is to grow relationships, genuine relationships with real people by looking at the whites of their eyes, you know. And I can't do that on social media. Also, there's nothing very visual about what I do. And there are only so many cute angles of myself that I can throw up on Instagram and, you know, look at me looking cute doing the dishes or whatever it is, you know. And the truth is, like, I don't need to get dressed up that often, you know. Like when I was doing social media, I was like, oh man, I gotta put lipstick on, I gotta do my hair, and I gotta put a cute. I don't have to do any of that, and I don't want to do any of that because I don't think that that's what my business is about.
And so you mentioned just now growing an audience. So is that one of your goals, like to grow an audience where your email list is growing and where you've got more and more people kind of in that orbit?
Yes, but growth, growth goals for me would look like high hundreds, low thousands, not tens or hundreds of thousands or millions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like I send out my newsletters, and I'm trying to dig into more detail around the ideas that I'm thinking about. And I'm pretty radical in my thinking, right? Like I talk a lot about how men are terrible, and, you know, the patriarchy and colonization has like reduced us all to ruins. Like I say a lot of those things, and that's not for everybody, right? There's not like tens of thousands or millions of people who are going to niche down in this radical way to sign up for my newsletter. So, but I will, I have a very small email list. It really is very, very small, but I can count on one hand the number of people who have unsubscribed in the last 12 months.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Right. So people hook in and they stay. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm really looking for that alignment, right? Like I really want people to understand just exactly how, X I am, right? Whether you think of me as being funny, or you think of me as being radical, or if you think of me as being a genius, or like whatever that is that you're like, that's that I would have followed that person. I want people to really see who that is. I'm not trying to show people some false version of myself, which I think is just really hard not to do with social media. It's really hard to
do.
Yeah. It's much easier to show up in my newsletter going, bah, and people going, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
So good. Okay, so in terms of your marketing, I know we're getting low on time. There's two things I wanted to point to that you do. Your huddles, you're still doing those free monthly huddles?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And then your freebie. So like very generous, both of those things. Your freebie is so fucking good. And I don't know by the time this comes out if it will still be a freebie, but if it is, you have to grab it. And it's about creating a job description. And I followed it completely. It's a little course that has videos and directions, and it is very complete. And so I used it and it helped me create a much better job description than I would have otherwise. So are a lot of people grabbing that?
Somebody just grabbed it yesterday, actually. I don't know what a lot is, and I'm kind of glad I don't know what a lot is. I also don't often go in there and check to see how many people have grabbed it, because if I get too focused on numbers and metrics and stuff like that, I will just start, like the life will start to just drain from me. I can't really make it about that. And thank you for sort of saying that this is a generous offer. I do feel like it's a generous offer. Like and to be clear, it is. You could describe it as a lead magnet, although I don't think it ever really truly works that way. But I have seen lead magnets as like PDFs with like 10 checkboxes on them. And to me, it's not enough. I think that for me, I want to be generous because I am generous. Like I am trying to be generous. I don't see a lot of sort of lead magnets or freebies that are this much. but I want for anybody who uses it to be able to see the value that I can offer. Whether you turn into a paying client, whether you refer me to somebody who becomes a paying client, whether you refer me to somebody who I go and do a workshop with or not, it doesn't matter. You can take this thing and you can run away with it and you can use it and you can think it's amazing, or you can use it and think it's terrible. I don't really care. But if it brings you to me and something I'm saying resonates with you and that tool helps you, then to me, that's fantastic. I love that. It makes me so happy. And then the other thing you mentioned is the huddle, the manager's huddle, which I run every month. It's free of financial commitment, so it doesn't cost any money to actually show up. But I do get your email address in exchange, and then you're part of my newsletter. So then you get my newsletter, from which anybody is welcome to unsubscribe at any time. And the manager's huddle, I run this once a month, the last Thursday of every month. And it's kind of like a group coaching Ask Me Anything. So you can show up and you can say, like, this last month we talked about, annual evaluations, which if anybody is interested in my opinion, I think they're ridiculous. But that was one of the questions that came. Somebody else had a question about how do you, when you hire somebody, how do you connect them in to the broader picture of your business? How do you sort of key them into like what the larger strategic vision is, even if they're like an admin assistant, right? Even if they are sort of quote lower down in the organization, how do you bring them into the larger vision and get them invested? So those were a couple of really interesting questions. And again, that is an opportunity for me to meet new people. Maybe they turn into leads and turn into paying clients, and that's great. But a lot of the time, what I'm getting out of those is it's market research. I get to hear right from the mouths of babes, right?
Yes.
What the problem is that you're dealing with today.
Oh
And
God,
that's just
so
amazing for
good.
me. Yeah. And then I get to test out new ideas, and I get to share things that I've learned. And some people come back. I've got a couple people who I don't even think they've missed one this whole year. Some people, come back a handful of times. Some people only come once. Some people show up and then they leave before the end and don't turn their camera on, and I don't know who they were. But it doesn't matter. And it's usually a really nice small group of people. I want to say
that was probably Beyonce, and she didn't want you to know.
That makes so much sense now that you said that. Who else could it possibly have been?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely Beyonce.
So
Wow.
how many people are usually there?
Oh gosh, one time over the summer I'd one. I think it was August. One person came, and this last month, 10 folks showed up. I think if it got really, really big and a ton of people were showing up, I would probably cap it because it's nice as a small group. I think probably no more than 10 to 12 people is a really nice size. I usually troubleshoot about 3 different problems. And, the chat is always going, so I'm having a conversation with somebody and then people are chiming in the chat and, start out with this silly icebreaker, which almost always has something to do with TV. And it's just great. I really look forward to doing it. And yeah, if anyone who's listening wants to come, please, 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 please do. You can go right to my website. You can go right to Huddle at the top and you can sign up. I'd love to have you.
Okay, so I'll say it again at the end, but say your website.
It's smallbusinesscopilot.com. And once you're there, there's a pop-up if you want to sign up for my newsletter, or you can go to contact me and sign up for my newsletter. You can go to Huddle and sign up for the Huddle. You can go and read about me and look at pictures of me being goofy, awkwardly trying to take photos of myself.
It's not that obvious to find the business, the job description. You've got to like scroll to the bottom, or there's like a really elegant banner at the very top.
There's a banner at the top that somebody keeps telling me to make wider, and I won't do it because I just don't. Because I've got to pop up, and you've got how much in your face stuff do people want?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I really want people to get from this is like, you can zig when other people are zagging. Like you can really be thoughtful. Like Podge is so thoughtful about how she wants to draw people, how she wants to serve people, how she wants to like make all of these marketing choices. And like there isn't one right answer, but like you're building something so phenomenal and you're zigging when other people are zagging.
Yeah, I really do try not to pay attention to what other people are doing too much because it can rock me. It absolutely can rock me. So I'm careful about who I talk to. I'm careful about who I share things with. I'm careful about who I ask questions because, especially even with the people whose opinions I want, I'm careful about the questions I ask them because if they tell me, buy the red one, I'll go buy 10 red ones, So because absolutely it's not, I don't, and this is, I don't think I'm like naturally rebellious, not to be meta, but I don't think I'm naturally rebellious, and I don't think I'm not trying to be obtuse. I know what I want and I know what I don't want. And I'm 45 years old, which to some people is young and to some people is old. I might have another 40 years on the planet if I'm lucky. What am I doing with my time? Am I going to be on social media just like desperately trying to find things to take pictures of, like my meals, or like I don't there are so many things. I feel like there's like a really long list of things that I could be doing rather than that. So I'm just careful about where I put my time, and I don't make assumptions that other people are going to be excited about a giant banner or a huge pop-up on my website, because I just feel like that's a lot. And yeah, okay, so maybe some people miss it. That's okay. But the people who pay attention, they'll find it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Podge. This has been
Thank you.
a delight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. And it's always wonderful to see you. I always want to see you like at least once a week.
All right, well, let's do it more. All right, now I'm going to loop back and share a few takeaways that really stand out to me from this conversation. Okay, takeaway number 1. Podge is only interested in working with folks who are willing to commit to the work. Instead of selling them a quick and false solution, she's really drawing the folks who are interested in investing in their teams.
What I'm saying is, I can fix your problems. It's probably going to take about 18 months, right? So I think it's less appealing, but I'm looking for the people who understand that in order to find sustainability, true sustainability, it takes commitment and it takes time.
Takeaway number 2, Podge is in no hurry to move away from one-on-one work. Part of her long game is prioritizing the excellence of her services and learning from the process each client goes through. So if you see Podge scaling, you're going to know she's doing it in a really high quality way.
Every time I take on a new client, it's another opportunity for me to learn more, grow, tweak, iterate, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't feel like I've landed yet on a place where I could go, great, I can package this up into a little box, tie a bow on it, and I can give it to you. And with some level of support, whether that's group or whether that's, office hours, like whatever that looks like, you can get this thing. I don't feel like my services are there yet.
Takeaway number 3, Podge builds her audience by networking and borrowing other people's audiences. If you only take one thing away from this whole interview, please take this. She's leaning into networking and borrowing audiences, and she's barely using social media at all.
I'm really good one-on-one. I'm really good with small groups. So oftentimes I'm referred or I borrow audiences, essentially. I go do workshops or speaking gigs.
What stood out to you? I would love to know what your takeaways were. Send me an email at info@coachingwithannie.com, and even better, include a voice memo so I can share your voice on the pod. Tell me what stood out to you from this conversation with Podge and what it's helping you rethink in your own business. You can find out more about Podge Thomas at smallbusinesscopilot.com. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, I would so appreciate it if you would share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That's how we reach more people. If you want the show notes, head over to rebeltherapist.me/podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.